and I decided to jump in. It was a new chapter in life, and I thought if it is to be, it's up to me. And I jumped in, and for the most part, never looked back. And it's been we're going on 3 decades at this point, so it's getting very, very close. It makes me seem old, probably where all the gray comes from, but it's been an absolutely fantastic career.
Welcome back. Hello, friends. I hope everybody is doing well today. Today, the chicks have a very special guest for you. We have a veteran of the automotive industry with over 26 years of experience. He has been a former general manager and operator, and now he is a coach and consultant for dealerships across the country. Please welcome Kim Baker to the stage.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi, Kim. How are you doing today?
I'm doing excellent. How are you ladies doing?
We are doing well. Midweek. It's been a busy week so far, so it's been pretty good.
Hanging in there, though.
Absolutely.
So you may be a stranger to some of our audience, and we gave a little bit of information about who you are, but tell our friends about how you got started in automotive and what you're doing to help dealerships.
So I got started in the automotive back in 1998. I had always wanted to sell new cars, and my family at that point in time, a lot of them worked for General Motors, and it was just seemed like the fun thing to do. I had been in door-to-door sales for about a year before I made the transition into the automotive space, and I decided to jump in. It was a new chapter in life, and I thought if it is to be, it's up to me. And I jumped in, and for the most part, never looked back. And it's been we're going on 3 decades at this point, so it's getting very, very close. It makes me seem old, probably where all the gray comes from, but it's been an absolutely fantastic career.
Wow. And you might be a stranger to our listeners right now, but you are definitely no stranger to Shasta and I. We have had the privilege of knowing you for, gosh, how many years now?
God, 6, 7, 8. I don't know.
Yeah, a lot of years. And we've gone through a lot of those positions with you. We've gone with you from being a dealer principal, being a general manager, to being a coach and consultant. And now you're even a huge part of the growth of Epic BDC and SCP agency as well.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. It has been a while. I think it's probably been since around, maybe, if I'm recalling correctly, maybe around 2015-ish.
Wow.
I think is when I was introduced to Robin. And then, over time, met and worked with, of course, both of you and a lot of people on the team over the years.
Mm-hmm. It's been some exciting years. I think our relationship with you now is probably where I feel like it's the best it's ever been, because you get to coach us. And that's something really cool. So years ago, we started working with a business coach for EOS, the Entrepreneurial Operating System.
That was in what, 2018, I think?
18 or 19.
Yeah.
And we the first one that we had wasn't automotive specific. And so we had to help coach him on automotive and teach him what our language meant. And it was pretty time consuming. And I still don't think he ever really understood.
Mm-hmm.
And then Kim broke out into the space and doing DAS, Dealership Accountability System. And we knowing his experience, what he's done in the car business, that he speaks our language already. We can cut through the crap and get down to brass tacks and figure out how to work together. And I want you to tell the audience a little bit what you do working with that system and how you use that to coach dealerships.
Yeah. So I think it was 2016. I was introduced to the concept and the operating system EOS, and it came from a 20 group meeting. It seemed like at that point in time, maybe 40% of the people were on it at that point in time. And so we ventured down that road. And I remember after the first introduction and meeting, I had a lot of reservations in going to the meeting because, at that point in time, we were heavily operating, selling 150 plus cars a month. I had better things to do. I had service to deal with, recon, getting cars sold, funding, et cetera, that, I remember going into the meeting thinking, why am I going into this? And how is this, is this going to be a waste of my time? 90 minutes went by after the meeting. And I remember looking at the owner at that point in time and saying, if you don't write the check, I'm going to. Like it just made a huge impact, enough of an impact for someone who doesn't make a big judgment, quick knee-jerk decision, that I made that decision. And, we moved forward with that. So, I spent vast majority of time from then until 2023 being an integrator, for various operations and so forth. And when I got out of the retail side of the business and went into the coaching side of the business, I thought to myself, what better process to be able to bring and to assist dealerships to take the 10 plus years of implementing this within the stores and seeing the successes and seeing the culture change and seeing the analytics and how we viewed things and how it helped us simplify issues, identify what they were, discussing those issues, and more importantly, solving those issues, and not continuously regurgitating the problems, kicking the can down the road, et cetera, but it also forced you to plan the vision and to live within a 90-day cycle. And 90-day chunks of time are a lot easier to manage. They're easier to hold accountable staff. They're easy to project, and they're easy to hit in comparison to yearly goals if they're broken out in that way. Where I saw value is in some of those conversations, and what led me to do that was a lot of the same things that you just explained about, some people not understanding the business. Because let's face it, the car business is very, very dynamic. It's always pivoting. There's so many revenue sources. There's just as much important on the offensive strategy as their defensive strategy. But more importantly, you got to make sure that everybody has a voice, everybody has a number, and everybody is accountable to the growth and making sure that everybody's rowing in the same direction. Where I feel I build value and bring value to the table in relation to that is simply having almost 3 decades worth of data behind me and processes and, failures as well, and learning from those scaling opportunities in the business's ebbs and flows. I can take some pie in the sky numbers and hold people accountable to see what they're going to change. What are they going to, what processes and what people are they going to change to be able to obtain those goals? And are they realistic? Because you want to be able to hit some goals, hitting those goals and getting those wins are what propels not only the owners and the operators to keep pushing, keep fighting the good fight, but it also allows the salespeople and the technicians and the lot porters and the office staff to hit those wins and knowing that there's more that we can do.
Yeah. Well, and I think one of the most important things that you said there is it gets everybody rowing in the same direction. While there's times where we think that, maybe this project I'm working on is so big, it's such an undertaking. And then you share it with everybody else on your executive team and you find out that's really not that big of a goal. Like, we're trying to do this thing over here, and you not being focused on this thing with us is keeping us from moving forward.
Right.
And so I think that's one of the biggest things that we've pulled from these meetings is making sure that we are all rowing in the same direction with the same goal. We know that pie in the sky number, and then we also know how to break it down into bite-sized pieces so that it's not just so overwhelming and all of these numbers like, oh my gosh, how are we going to do this?
Right.
And we have to identify, we have to hold each other accountable.
Yeah. And, the nice thing about that is it's one thing to say that you want to do something. It's another to put the action plans in place to be able to do so, and having structured milestones that have to be hit in order to hit the end result is the looming task of doing things. Most people by trade are procrastinators. It's just the people who have figured out how that they are procrastinators and figured out how to alleviate some of that procrastinating. This allows it to do it. But again, by accomplishing those milestones in bite-sized chunks. But the nice thing about things like rocks, rocks are again something that cannot be completed within 14 days, but has to be completed within a quarter. Those rocks doesn't necessarily mean if it's your rock, Shasta, that you're solely the only one working on it. Jess may be helping in certain areas to obtain that goal, and it's a collective effort to make sure that things are done, and things are done with thought, and you're working on the business rather than working in the business.
Right. So when you start working with a dealership and you introduce them to this system, which aspect do you think they struggle with when deciding to get on board the most? Like, I think if I were to make my guess on what it would be, I would say the ability to have honest, open, transparent communication. But where do you see them struggle with making this system work for them?
A lot of it does. So the root of what you just said goes down to trust. And the leadership team has to trust each other. But the level of trust that the team will develop over time is far more than what it is in the current state. Most people don't like talking about the hard things. And what this process allows to happen is the elephants in the room to be brought out. And oftentimes what happens are the elephants aren't as big as what they seem. They're very relative to what's going on and oftentimes easy to be fixed. On top of that, the hardest other portion of it is breaking things down into the KPI levels, because the system is designed that if you're an owner, and let's say that I'm the owner and my wife and I take off and we go to a desert island. I want to be able to see a scorecard come over a fax once a week that says either my business is healthy and things are going good by those critical, components in those relative areas, or Mayday, pack your stuff. We got to hop on a plane because the ship's sinking. Like it allows the predictability, but it allows you to be able to not go through an entire month without knowing where in the world your month fell apart. So in other words, if you had a meeting today and it's recapping last week and what those KPIs are, if the KPIs are not where they're supposed to be. So take example, maybe if it's lead gen. If lead gen falls off, if you're used to getting 2,000 leads that week and you get 1,000 leads, well, that's a call to the marketing department. It's a call to the marketing department. It's a call to, your CRM. Maybe there's a software update that happened, or maybe that for whatever reason, the Google spend got, less. Like, it allows you to catch those things to mitigate the valleys and the losses. So you're able to get focused and back on track a lot quicker and identify what those things are. Those are the two biggest things is again, trust and KPIs, what really matters when it comes to the KPIs.
Well, and I'll tell you probably one of the best things that EOS had done for us and myself personally is really keeping us on track when we are in meetings and keeping the focus on what the focus needs to be on and bettering the company and not having all of these tangents and one-off conversations happening around the table. They all keep us on track. Everybody knows where everybody stands inside of those meetings. And I think that that's lacking a lot in the everyday world.
Yeah. So I always relay this conversation to everybody's been to like a Chuck E. Cheese over the years, and everybody's played the game of whack-a-mole, and you got all these moles that are popping up all over the place and you're hitting them. And in essence, that's what the dealership world's like. I mean, every day is a firefight. There's something going on respectively in each department all the time. But is it really that big of a problem that you have to stop everything and address everything at that point in time? Do you spend your entire day fixing things, or are you allowing things to be fixed organically or addressing the people? Because it's always people or processes. It's one of the two. It's either a process that's broken and somebody doesn't know, or in essence you have a people problem, and this allows you to flush those things out to have an intelligent conversation. And again, to make sure that the marching orders are crystal clear going forward, mitigate those things. But it allows you a very structured meeting, because nobody likes meetings. Nobody in this world loves going to a meeting where it goes around the table, around the table. There's no structure. And this is a very structured, 90-minute meeting that happens once a week, where you're checking in with each other, what's worked in the last 7 days since we got together on a personal side, and what's one win on the business side. And you're able to share, because necessarily in operations, what has been a win in one department, those other departments may not know that it was a win, or may not know that they contributed to the win. So it allows a lot of transparency, and it allows a lot of trust. It also allows things like headlines to be able to take into play. Who's coming into the organization. Tell us about this person. Who's leaving the organization? What's the purpose and why? Is there a life-changing event? Is there things that you talk about to make sure everybody's on the same page, from a marketing standpoint, or a process change, or maybe you're buying another dealership and then the ink's done. There's a lot of things that allow a lot of crystal clarity to happen in those meetings. Then you get into things like the scorecard. You look at the scorecard, which is the health card. Is it on track? Is it off track? If it's off track, why is it off track? And how do you do those, or how do you fix those things? You go over the to-dos, the things that are issues on the scorecard, you're dropping those into the IDS session. You talk about to-dos. To-dos are something that, maybe it was an issue that you had last week that you have to have more data to be able to solve the issue. It's one person's responsibility to, bring that data back to the meeting so you can have an informed decision and force a decision to happen. That's a very, very critical thing. Looking at company rocks, looking at personal rocks. Again, rocks are things that can't be done within 2 weeks period of time, that have to be done within a quarter's period of time. They're bigger projects. They're bigger things, and you're allowed to see if someone's off track or if they're on track. If they're off track for 2 consecutive weeks, it allows you to have that conversation. What is it going to take you to get back on track? Because at the end result, you want to be able to finish what you stated you were going to do, because that's your rock. You've got to have it handled. So there's many things that lead up to it that are doing the checks and balances within the dealership operating itself, to make sure things are going the way it should be and everything's on track. The IDS session is the most critical session, and the reason I say that is it should be talked about the higher level things. Hence, out of that 90 meeting, it should take up about 60 minutes.
Right.
That 90-minute meeting. And in that thing, you're doing 3 things. You're identifying, discussing, and solving an issue. Those are very, very critical. And if you spend the entire 60 minutes on one issue, but it's that big of an issue, and that issue is solved, that meeting is well worth it. And
Right.
It's the time for the people in the room to be selfish, meaning that I've got a problem that's keeping me from doing my job, and I need to figure out what the problem is. You have to address the person who is the source of the problem, being the department, or if marketing's not working, you're having a marketing conversation like this isn't working, but here's what I see. Here's some feedback that gives that person the ability to make a decision, who's handling it, to be able to fix the problem. That way, everything gets back to normal. The last part of it, comes to the conclusion. Everybody has to, rate the meeting on a scale of 1 to 10. Did the meeting start on time? Did it end on time? And did it have meaningful content? Because let's face it, if it doesn't have meaningful content, it's a wasted meeting. If it's anything less than an 8, that person has to have the wherewithal to state why that they gave that meeting a 7 or a 6 or a 5. And you have to stay in the meeting until that problem is solved. So it doesn't allow cans to be kicked down the road. It
Right.
forces you to address issues and move forward.
Definitely. And I think when we look within the dealership, I get a little bit of a window, probably similar to you, into, dealerships around the country every day and their operations, and, everybody pointing fingers at somebody else. And it's, oh, well, the sales managers aren't doing this, this, and this. Oh, well, service isn't doing this, this, or that. BDC isn't doing this, this, or this.
Right.
And so it's like that Spider-Man meme where everybody's pointing at each other, and nobody's willing to take accountability, but also nobody's forcing accountability either. And so I think that that's something that is so invaluable that maybe you can't put a KPI on, but just everybody being aware of these issues within departments, and sitting in a room where we're holding each other accountable to do these things. And it again goes back to that level of trust, and you have to have that trust that the person who's calling you out has your best interests in mind.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep. And, the most successful meetings are the most heated meetings. I know in these type of structured meetings, they're never a personal attack, but it's really what's for the greater of the good and what's good for the company.
Mm-hmm.
And being able to have a tough, high level, high stress conversation wrapped around the intentions of what's for the greater good is a very welcoming and rewarding conversation.
For sure.
So as we're talking about, I know that we all get a pretty good look into the dealerships on a daily basis. What do you think is the biggest obstacle that you're seeing dealerships face right now, Kim?
Well, a lot of things have changed since COVID. Before COVID, things were normal, I guess is what I would say. The COVID years changed a lot of things. The sense of urgency to buy skyrocketed. Banks were very willing to lend money. Values of vehicles have done something that I haven't seen in the last 26 years in the business. They appreciated, and they appreciated heavily, and interest rates were low. So about mid-year last year, that changed, and inventory values started to, values started to drop on vehicles, and drop significantly, where we were used to an average of $300 or $400 car. Sometimes it was not uncommon to see $1,000 or $1,500 rip come off a car, book value wise. And that's tough to right size quickly, because it takes a while for you to realize what's really going on. So as you started to see sales sort of retract, it was due to a couple things. One, delinquencies were going up in the subprime sector, and now they're not only in the subprime sector, but they're also in the prime sector. So delinquencies started going up, so banks are tightening up. You see the values of those vehicles starting to drop, and continuously to this day still drop. And again, we often forget that that's the business. It's the car's worth no more than what it is today when you bought it. It's going down from that point in time. And it has also made it tough because we're still probably 12 to 14 months away from the upside downness of those years. Most consumer cycles were, anywhere from 3 years. It's been that way for a long time. 36 months is about how long a customer keeps. Well, the data shows that people are keeping their vehicles longer, and it's not because they want to, it's because they have to, so you have to be able to adapt to those. You have to change your messaging, and, you have to change the way your philosophy is within the, service department, and expecting that people are going to keep their vehicles longer, and understanding and knowing, educating the customer, because, the days of being able to have the customer come in and they're, $3,000 upside down and they've got $700 down. The days of finding solutions for those are very, very tough, for a lot of different reasons. The interest rates are up dramatically from where they were. Book values, again, are still going down, and consumers are still upside down a lot in the vehicles that they bought in the peak. They bought it in the peak, and it just hasn't gone through the cycle yet to where they can get out of it a lot easier.
Well, and to be honest, like, even if, somebody may normally throw some extra money at their car, like, nobody's got that extra money right now. I mean, if
they don't, I read a report not too long ago where the average consumer has, roughly because of inflation, about $800 less per month in their household income. And that eats up a lot. It does. About maybe a year ago, I started hearing, as I actively work with clients around the U.S., there's often times where I hop on the phone and structure deals and work deals when I'm, working with a sales manager or a desk manager and trying to coach and train them, or even an F&I manager. And one thing that I had heard maybe 8 or 10 years ago from one bank in particular, they started talking about net disposable income. And net disposable income is how much money does the consumer have left after all expenses are paid, the structured fixed expenses. And things like that are very, very common now. What I used to hear, again, 7, 8, 10 years ago from one lender in particular seems to have run a mass amongst a bunch of them, where they've adapted a similar type of system in figuring out the net income of what a consumer actually has and whether that's going to budget for that person.
Right. Yeah, it's a big topic of conversation right now, especially as we get closer to the election. And I mean, everybody wants to fight about everything, but that is probably the biggest topic is, these candidates can't even relate to us because they don't even understand how much we're struggling. And obviously the buyers know that. I mean, it's no unknown fact to anybody here that I work in BDC. And so I get to see conversations with customers all day long. And all these customers are like, I've got to wait. I've got a 760 something credit score, and it doesn't make sense that I would pay this interest rate right now when I know maybe in a couple months I'll qualify for something better. And they're not wrong. And that's the crappy thing is, like, we also have people, we've got people within our stores that we need to feed, but they're not wrong.
Right.
Like, this doesn't make sense right now.
Yeah. In the biggest sector, it seems like that was sort of hit. I have in the past and still do continuously work with a lot of operations that were heavy subprime. Just to reflect back, the independent operation that that I served for many years. We were very, very heavy subprime, 85% subprime with an average credit score of 399 and an average income of about $2,100. So, I know deep subprime, and deep subprime is what's been affected the most. And it's because you can't outrun the math of paying more for the car, paying more for interest rate, et cetera, et cetera. And they're also getting hit the highest from inflation, it's impacting them harder than some of the other demographics. So a lot of dealers that have been heavy subprime have started to morph their business into more of a hybrid model, where they are still serving the underserved and still going after a lot of the special finance, but they're opening up the market and opening up their processes to go after mid-prime and prime customers, because at the end of the day, it's about customer acquisition. And as long as you still have a very, very sharp-minded individuals from a marketing side and from a desking side and a buying side for the cars, you're still able to assist in those special finance areas and not get away from the other side. They're able to do the mid-prime and prime deals as well, if not better, if they adapt their processes to welcome that customer in the right way and earn their business the right way.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's the magic piece that a lot of dealers are missing, especially those who run in our circles that may have started their business targeting those subprime customers, back before COVID, when nobody else was targeting them. Nobody else was letting them know, hey, you can buy a car. Like, you don't have to be stuck in a car you hate. We have the solutions for you. And then as those people, those dealers, really helped our economy when it needed help, they're struggling right now.
Yep.
Because of that same thing. Maybe they've got marketing companies that are telling them, just hold out. And meanwhile, they're starving themselves because they've lost 50% of their customer base to the deep subprime that can no longer afford cheese, let alone a car.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I've never heard of more customers who are literally walking to work or taking public transport. They just opted out of having a vehicle in general because they can't afford it. I've never seen any more of this than I have right now.
It's one thing to acknowledge the problem, which they know what the problem is. But if you're not addressing it, you're just enabling it to happen.
Right.
You have to make some tough decisions, and you've got to change some things. And at the end of the day, car dealers are very, very resilient individuals. I mean, let's face it. I've seen a lot of things from the 08, 09 fiasco that happened in the car industry, where quite honestly, it felt like everything went to hell in a handbasket really, really quick. The last year and a half has been small in scale in comparison to what happened back then, but car people in general are pretty resilient. They have to remember why they're resilient, and they have to be adaptable to change, because it's a completely different environment. And as I was saying earlier about living in a 90-day cycle, if you have to pivot in 90 days because something isn't working, it's a lot easier to make that pivot, to recognize what those things are, to put a plan of action in place, and to put some KPIs around it that are holding people accountable to making those changes. You can change your year, and you can make it to where, you've taken a bad year to a good year to a great year, etc. But it takes a 90-day focus, because things change.
Well, and let's be honest, around the auto industry, things are changing more on a 30-day basis than a 90-day basis as it is.
Yep.
I mean, we're pivoting weekly at this point. Kim, I'm going to challenge you to channel your inner psyche here. If you had to guess what the next 6 to 12 months look like for the auto industry,
what are we looking at?
What do you think?
I'm going to say you're still going to fight the fight that's going on now. There's no warm and fuzzy that's just going to change things. We can't forget, although we do forget, we're in an election year, and the election years are typically always tough.
We forget every 4 years.
We do, and we're right in the heat.
It happens every 4 years, but we forget.
What's going on? Oh, yeah, there's an election.
You just have to be very present and have a good pulse and make decisions that are based upon data more than your gut. The data will lead you to a lot of good decisions, and you just have to make sure you have a lot of good people rowing in the same direction. You have to make sure that you have the inventory and the banks to serve your primary core people that are coming in your door, because you can't fit a square peg in a round hole. Just doesn't work. So if you're not serving the people that are already coming in the door, you have to look at where those deficiencies are. Is it in the inventory? And if it is, just be honest and do what you need to do to right size it. Because there's a holding cost to a vehicle as well. You got to make sure that you're turning your inventory, sufficient enough times to outrun the book and the holding cost period. Do you have the sufficient banks to be able to service those customers that are coming in the door? Pulling reports, things like cross-sell reports. I talk about this quite a bit. If you can pull cross-sell reports, you can see what banks are in the area and doing very well. And if you don't have them, that needs to be someone's mission to get them on, to get them signed up and get them on board. And it's not as easy in today's world to sign up a new bank as what it was, 5, 6, 7 years ago. And that simply is because of the delinquencies. It's tougher to get those things done. So it's tougher to buy cars. It's tougher to get the banks. It's tougher to drive people to the store. And again, you can acknowledge it, but what are you putting in place to help cure that cause?
The age-old question. I think we're seeing a lot of dealers who are reaching out for this level of coaching. They're looking to see, who do I need to be connected with to learn from to know how to get on the other side of this. Just like the customers that they're trying to work, these dealers are starting to get hungry too. with less customers coming in the door, they're trying to figure out ways to keep the lights on, to keep their people employed. If you guys are listening to this, it's true. That things aren't the way that they used to be. You guys have to pay more for things that you didn't have to. And so it's going to take all of us banding together, using our collective resources, our collective knowledge, to know how to move through this and bring each other out on the other side of this.
Absolutely.
Yeah. A lot of people have, I think when you look back and reflect on that last half of 2023, everybody goes through about 60 days worth of bad times before it stings hard enough to say, Mayday, there's a problem. Let's dive into some things and make some changes. But those are big changes that happen in a downturn. And one of the things that they start talking about is, they want to cut things like advertising and, reallocate it. Don't cut it. Reallocate it. Don't turn off the faucet. You have to be a lead generation company first and foremost to be able to control a portion of the traffic. And if you keep very, very good statistical data, what that data is and what your end result should be.
Right.
And you have to be able to do things that are customer friendly and customer inviting. A lot of dealers that I work with have gone to sending custom videos to, prospective buyers. And, that's something that a lot of people haven't done in the past, but it pays big dividends in the sales department and really pays big dividends in the service department and the ability to sell a vehicle, to get a decision quicker, to create a sense of urgency, and just to do something different that not everybody's doing out there.
Right.
You can create a lot of enthusiasm by custom videos that are specifically designed for that person, whether it's a 2-minute walk around on a vehicle, showing them the vehicle, confirming the appointment, et cetera, or it's the technician that's doing a custom video or a service writer that's doing a custom video on a car that's in for service. And when they send that to a customer, the sale is a lot easier because the customer can see it in black and white, and they're just not taking your word for this needs to be replaced or that's going to need to be replaced.
Right.
So be adaptable.
Kim, if you could give one piece of advice to anybody walking through the doors of a dealership today to start their career in automotive, what would it be?
Dive in. It's fun. It has been and always will be the highest form of compensation without any formal education. It just deals with your drive. It's the one thing that you can go in with no idea what to do, but have an ambition, have discipline, have process, and open ears to the people that have done the business for so long and listen to those older people.
It's perfect. I love that.
I do too.
What is the best way for people to connect with you if they have questions about DAS or Dealer Strong, wanting to work with you? How can they best get in touch with you?
You can go to the Dealer Strong website. It's a real easy way. Phone number's on there. LinkedIn. I'm very, very active on LinkedIn. Have quite a big network on there. There's a link to my calendar at that point in time if they just want a 15-minute introductory call to kind of get a basis of what some of their problems are, to get a different perspective. That 15 minutes is completely free. People are more than welcome to reach out to me via my mobile as well. That number is 419-771-9534. More than happy to help in any way, capacity, even if it's sometimes just having a gut check conversation.
Those are the best ones.
Absolutely. All right, Kim. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to hang out with us today and chat with us. We are so excited that we were finally able to do this after over a year of talking about it.
Yeah, it's been a while.
It has been. All right. So without further ado, in a world where you can be anything, be kind, because you never know what battles others are facing. So whenever you go out into the world this week, remember to light it up. I'm Jess.
I'm Shasta.
And that's Kim. We've been the Chicks in Charge.
Have a great day, ladies.
Yay, you've made it this far. And if you want to help the chicks out and add some value, make sure you subscribe right now.
Click that little red button down below. Do it. Do
Right
it now.